When I came to do the arrangement of this song, I basically just listened to the song for the first time in many years, and it just caught my ear, and I wondered what the chord sequence was, so I went away, had a look at the chord sequence. Very straightforward chord sequence, only 4 chords that we're going to be doing: E minor, C major, G major, D major. We don't have to worry about any change of position up the neck because all of the chord shapes are in standard position. The only thing that does happen, obviously, is we add in some other techniques like tapping and some percussive work. The first part of the song is very much based around standard fingerpicking discipline. So we have the left hand playing the chord shapes and the right hand doing the picking just here. And then we move into the second section. We start to bring the right hand over the top and do tapping on the neck of the guitar. First thing we're going to do is try and put in the standard stuff. Now what we actually end up doing here is playing a standard chord position like E minor and adding in another note, for example the 3rd fret on the B string just there. Now on the face of it, that then gives you a different chord, which would be an E minor 7. So you can look at it in many different ways, and because of the way the arrangement works, we're going to be playing a lot of these notes whilst we're actually holding down the chord shape. So they're altering the chord, but at the same time they're the melody notes, and because we're putting them on one instrument at the same time, you're probably going to recognise some of the shapes if you've done anything other than standard chords. So if you've done 7th chords or 6th chords or sus4 chords, sus2 chords, you're going to see some of those cropping up purely because of the notes that get added in with the melody. So we start off with an E minor, and we're going to just pick across the G, the B and the E just there. Thumb is on the bass E string. We do not actually need to hold down these 2 notes because we're not playing them. I hold them down because occasionally I might add in a strum, or sometimes at the beginning, rather than doing the picking, I'll do a strummed harmonic, which we'll come to later on. So, the melody notes are open on the E, 3rd fret on the B, and open on the B. Anything else we add in is just to give it weight from the chords point of view. So these 2 notes just here aren't actually part of the melody, but it's part of the run that the right hand does, like so. So that section again. Right hand thumb, 1st finger, 2nd finger, 3rd finger. Now if you've never done any finger picking before, it might be difficult to get that running smoothly, and I'd recommend just stopping the video and practicing that bit before you move on, because it's going to require a lot more of that kind of thing. Move to the next shape is going to be C, and when we do this we're actually going to be holding down the 3rd fret on the B string, and these 3 fingers are going to move from being on the G, the B and the E to being on the D, the G and the B just there, so they moved up 1 string. Thumb moves down from the E string to the A string, and we're going to hold down the 3rd fret with the little finger just there. 1st finger is hovering ready around the 1st fret just here because we will need that note in a moment. So we get this sound, and then you move to the 1st fret, little finger comes off, and then open, and then the 2nd finger moves from the D string at the 2nd fret to the G string at the 2nd fret, and I use my 2nd finger on the right hand to pick that. So that whole section with the C move to the next chord shape. It's going to be a G. We're not using the notes that we would normally have held down at the 3rd fret just here. We're only holding down the top 2 strings. So actually the change that we get is from the C just here, just moving these 2 fingers up a string, practically a C shape. And then this finger is going to be holding down the 1st fret on the B string, 1st finger. And at this point, we've actually moved the thumb onto the bass E string, but the rest of the shape stays the same. So these 3 fingers are staying on the D, the G and the B. You play 1st fret and then open on the B, and then 2nd on the G, and then open on the G. And that's the 2nd finger with this hand moving across from the A string at the 2nd fret to the G string at the 2nd fret. So the G again. Finally we move to a D major. At this point your thumb moves to the D string, and these 3 fingers are back on the bottom 3 strings. When I play this, I bring my right hand over the top for the melody note and hammer onto the 4th fret of the D string. You have to do that pretty quickly, and in fact, if you watch the YouTube video that I recorded of this, it's actually incorrect. Like I said, I'd only just come up with the arrangement. On listening back to it and tweaking it a bit, if you listen to the real recording, you hear that it's actually a lot quicker, so it's more like... To do that movement, you've got to be really confident. You've got to make sure that your hand is guided up the neck with the thumb, so the thumb is sliding along the neck essentially as you come to the point where you're going to hammer on, and then when you do hammer on, your thumb's on the back of the neck just there to give you a bit of push and allow you to grasp the neck. We're going to come to that in a second when we do the completely tapped section, but for now, just practice moving down from, or up from, this position here to the tap just there. For the sake of argument, if you found that very difficult and you were still wanting to try and play the song but you couldn't quite do that bit, you can use the little finger to do it. It has its own drawbacks. It's difficult to reach the little finger over the top. You often find that you mute the strings below, and it might be just as difficult to get that down quickly, but you could do it that way if you wanted to. As I say, I've tweaked this so that now I tend to try and do that more quickly, but I don't always do that. It really depends on how things are going, how I'm feeling, and sometimes I do it a little bit slower, sometimes I do it a little bit quicker, so had a longer pause just there, shorter pause there. Up to you, listen to the song, see what you prefer the sound of, see what you can do more easily. If you've got very long nails, incidentally, at that point when you do the tap, you might find it difficult to hammer down onto the strings, so this probably won't pick up too well, but my nails are long. They're not too long though, they just basically show in a crescent over the top of my finger. They're not crazy long. Also reinforced with acrylic, so when I do all the tapping stuff, it doesn't tend to damage the nail so much if I catch it on the strings when I'm tapping. I don't try and tap with the acrylic, but if you have a natural nail, you'll find that you put little dings and things in it if you don't get it quite right. So it's something to be aware of again, so yeah, try to keep your nails maintained, otherwise you'll snag it on something. The entire section I'll play you through slowly. Now at the end of that section, when I just played the D and hammered onto the 4th fret just there, I have my right hand over on the neck and I need to strum the E minor again in order to play through, because that goes through twice. So to do that, I use the little finger and strum across like that, which gives me time to then put my hand back into the normal position and start the whole thing over. Again, it's going to take a bit of getting used to. I use the little finger, very rarely used when you're finger picking, so you probably don't have it trained up that well at the moment. You could, again, for the sake of argument, try to come back down. I would probably still try and do an upstroke if I did that, so yeah, it's almost impossible to get it actually in time just there, and you kind of get your fingers scraping down the neck, and you won't find it comfortable, I don't think. So, using the little finger, you drag across. Allows you to do a slightly more leisurely strum as well, which I don't know, adds to the feel of the beast, I think. Now, apart from this, it's really just that looping around 2 times. Once we've gone through it, we're back in this position again and we move into the next section. At this point, it's probably worth just stopping the video, practicing through that a few times and just getting used to all of the different things you got just there. You got a little bit of normal finger picking, you've got the first hint of the techniques which we're going to use in the next section. In this section of the song, we're entirely tapping and strumming with the right hand on the neck just here. So we've just played the D minor, and then all of it's tapped. I sometimes, depending on which note I'm playing, reinforce my first finger with my second finger so that I can tap a little bit harder, a little more accurately. Sometimes I don't do that. It depends on which section I'm doing, so you watch my fingers, you'll see where I'm doing it, where I'm not. You might want to try that yourself. And then, same as before, we're doing this strum with the left hand so that we can actually get the chords ringing underneath, because this is what the melody line's doing just here. So. Now when I do the strums this time, I try and use my little finger and my third finger, which kind of gives me a slightly staggered sound. And again, this adds to the depth of the piece and potentially makes it sound like more than one instrument playing, because the strumming is a little bit staggered. It sounds like maybe two guitars coming in there, and you've got the melody line coming in a bit as well. All helps to create the illusion that more is happening than actually is, because it's relatively straightforward. The left hand, if you watch the left hand throughout most of the piece, it is just doing these chord shapes. Right hand is doing all of the work. So starts off with the E minor again. We do two kind of grasps upwards, and my thumb pretty much always stays on the back of the neck during this section. Two grasps upwards, and then you hammer down onto the 4th fret of the D, like so. Two more strums up, and then you hammer down onto the 4th fret of the D again. Change to the C, left hand. Again, two strums up, and then hammer onto the 4th fret. Strum up, nothing after that. Change to the G as we hammer onto the 5th fret of the D this time, and slide down to the 4th fret, like that. So. In that section we change things slightly because we're doing the slide down, so we get. And when we do that, we're trying to get the top string ringing to give us a bit of context. So the first finger has to do a bit of work coming across like that. So again, kind of flicking my whole hand up like that. I'm exaggerating it a little bit so you can see it a little bit more easily. You can tone it down a bit if you want. So, for example. So go through that 2 times on the G, and then takes you to the D, and then you hammer down 1 more time. And at this point you either take it round again, do that 2 times, or you go into the chorus, which will be a different section. So, whole thing going through slow, watch the fingers. I'll take you from actually the end of the last section so you have some context for it. So. And then the chorus. So in between those two sections, introduction and this, which, let's guess the verse, we get this. So just 2 quick taps. Ba-ba. So the first one's almost just like bouncing off the string, and the second one, you're actually hammering on hard to the string. Now at this point, again, I would recommend practicing that section through, trying the techniques. As you can probably tell, sometimes I use different fingers when I'm doing the strumming, so I start off a little bit quiet and I try to get louder. As I get louder, I potentially start to use more of the fingers to do the strumming just here, and it all gets a little bit more erratic, perhaps. So to start off with, I'm mainly using the 3rd finger. And then I start to add in the little finger, which catches the high strings a little bit more and makes them jump out a bit, so creates a bit more separation between the bass line and the chords that are in there and the melody line high-pitched stuff. Pause the video, have a go at that section, try it a couple of times, maybe rewind and just look at what my fingers are doing. You'll probably notice the reinforcing thing in that section quite a lot. Try that out, see how you do with it, and move on to the next section.